He came on the show to apologize for mistakes he'd made 14 years ago. Wanted closure. Wanted her forgiveness. But when Dr. Phil asked him, "Can you say the word rape?" And he couldn't, the truth didn't just expose his fake remorse. It revealed he'd been rewriting history for over a decade. And the woman sitting across from him was done protecting his narrative. Tyler Monroe sat on the Dr. Phil stage with his hands folded, his expression carefully arranged into something meant to look like remorse. Across from him sat Jessica Palmer. Her posture was rigid, guarded, the body language of someone who'd learned not to trust. "Jessica," Tyler began, his voice soft. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry. For everything that happened between us. For the pain I caused. For the way I handled things." He leaned forward slightly. "I was young. Immature. I made mistakes. But I've grown. I've changed. And I came here today to ask for your forgiveness so we can both move forward." Jessica's face showed nothing. No emotion. Just watching. Dr. Phil leaned back in his chair. "Tyler, you keep using the word mistakes. What specifically are you apologizing for?" Tyler's smile faltered slightly. For how I treated Jessica. For not being more considerate of her feelings. For the misunderstanding we had that. Misunderstanding. Dr. Phil interrupted. "Is that what you're calling it?" "I mean," Tyler's hands gestured vaguely. "It was complicated. We were at a party. We'd both been drinking. Things got out of hand. And afterward, there was confusion about what happened. Miscommunication." Dr. Phil looked at Jessica. "Is that how you would describe what happened?" Jessica's voice came out flat. Emotionless. "No. How would you describe it?" Jessica's eyes stayed on Tyler. "I would call it what it was. Rape." The word dropped into the studio like a bomb. The audience's collective intake of breath was audible. Tyler's carefully constructed expression cracked. "Jessica, that's not fair. We talked about this. It wasn't like that." "We haven't talked about it," Jessica said. Her voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath. "You've talked to me. For 14 years. Telling me what happened. Rewriting the story. Making me doubt my own memory. But we've never actually talked about what you did to me that night." Tyler looked at Dr. Phil like he was searching for an ally. "This is exactly why I wanted to come here. To clear up these misconceptions. To get to the truth of what really happened." "The truth," Dr. Phil repeated. His expression was unreadable. "Tyler, I want to ask you something. And I want you to answer honestly." Tyler nodded. "Of course. I'm here to be honest. To finally put this behind us." Dr. Phil's eyes didn't leave Tyler's face. "Can you say the word rape?" The studio went completely silent. Tyler's face cycled through several expressions. Confusion. Defensiveness. Fear. "I don't. Why would I say that word? That's not what happened." "I didn't ask if it happened," Dr. Phil said. "I asked if you can say the word. Just the word. Rape." Tyler's jaw worked. His hands gripped his knees. "I don't see what this has to do with." "Say it," Dr. Phil said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. Tyler looked at Jessica, then back at Dr. Phil. I don't think that's helpful. Using inflammatory language when what we need is." "You can't say it," Dr. Phil said. It wasn't a question. "You've been here for 10 minutes talking about mistakes and misunderstandings and things getting out of hand. But you can't say the word that describes what Jessica is accusing you of. Because it's not accurate. Or because saying it out loud would force you to acknowledge what you actually did," Dr. Phil finished. He pulled out a folder. "Jessica, you filed a police report the day after the party. Do you remember that?" Jessica nodded. "I went to the hospital. Got a rape kit done. Filed a report. And then," her voice caught. "And then Tyler's friend started calling me. Texting me. Telling me I was going to ruin his life. That I was misremembering. That I'd been drunk and confused. And Tyler," she looked at him. "Tyler showed up at my apartment. Crying. Begging me not to destroy him over a mistake. So you withdrew the report," Dr. Phil said quietly. "I was 20 years old," Jessica whispered. "Everyone was telling me I was wrong about what happened to my own body. I started doubting myself. Maybe I'd been too drunk. Maybe I'd said yes and didn't remember. Maybe," she stopped. "It took me years to realize that was exactly what they wanted. For me to doubt myself." Tyler's voice rose. "I wasn't trying to manipulate you. I was scared. I was a college kid facing false accusations. False. Jessica's laugh came out bitter. You held me down. I said no. Multiple times. I tried to push you off. And you kept going. That's not a misunderstanding, Tyler. That's rape. Tyler stood up. This isn't fair. I came here to apologize. To try to make peace. And you're making me out to be some kind of monster. Sit down, Dr. Phil said. The same tone he'd used before. Absolute authority. Tyler sat. Let me tell you what I see, Dr. Phil said. I see a man who spent 14 years convincing himself that what he did wasn't that bad. That it was a mistake or a misunderstanding. A man who pressured his victim into dropping charges. Who has now convinced himself he's the good guy for wanting to apologize and move forward. Dr. Phil leaned forward. But you're not apologizing for what you actually did. You're apologizing for the vague concept of causing pain. You're asking Jessica to forgive you for something you won't even name. Tyler's face had gone red. That's not. Then say it, Dr. Phil challenged. Look at Jessica and say, I raped you and I'm sorry. If you really want her forgiveness, start by being honest about what you're asking forgiveness for. Tyler's mouth opened. Closed. His breathing had gone shallow. For 15 seconds, you could count them, he said nothing. Finally, I can't say that, because that's not what I believe happened. Dr. Phil nodded slowly, like Tyler had just confirmed something. So you didn't come here to apologize for raping Jessica. You came here to get her to agree that it wasn't rape. I came here to find closure. For you? Jessica cut in. Her voice was stronger now. You came here for your closure, your peace of mind, so you could stop feeling guilty about what you did. But you're not actually sorry. You just wanted to tell you that you're not a rapist, so you can feel better about yourself. Tyler turned to her. That's not fair, Jess. I think about that night all the time. I feel terrible about how things went. I wish I could go back and what? Jessica asked. And stop when I said no? That's literally the least you could have done. That's not something you get credit for wishing you'd done differently. The audience was riveting. Several people were crying. A woman in the third row was nodding emphatically. Dr. Phil pulled out another document. Tyler, after we brought you on the show, we did some research. Reached out to people who were at that party. And we found something interesting. He looked up. 3 other women from your college have similar stories about you. Same pattern. Party. Drinking. Woman says no. You don't stop. Tyler's face went white. Those are lies. People trying to. One of them filed a police report, too, Dr. Phil continued. But like Jessica, she was pressured to drop it. By you. By your friends. By people who told her she'd ruin your life over a misunderstanding. He paused. Her name was Amy Chun. Do you remember her? Tyler said nothing. But his legs started bouncing. A nervous tell. Amy struggled for years after what you did to her, Dr. Phil said quietly. Depression. Anxiety, PTSD. She tried multiple times to get justice, to be believed, but every time she was shut down, told she was lying, told she was confused. Dr. Phil's voice dropped even lower. 6 years ago, Amy took her own life. She left a note. Want to know what it said? The studio was dead silent. It said, I'm tired of living in a world where people like him get to keep lying about people like me. Tyler made a sound. Something between a gasp and a sob. Did you know about Amy? Dr. Phil asked. No. I heard but I didn't know. Tyler's hand was shaking now. I didn't know, that's why. Would it have mattered? Jessica asked. Her voice was like ice. If you'd known one of your victims killed herself, would you have stopped telling yourself that what you did wasn't that bad? How many rapists convince themselves they're not rapists? How many victims spend years being gaslit about their own trauma? Keep watching, because what Dr. Phil says next will make you rethink everything you believe about forgiveness and accountability. Tyler was crying now, real tears, but Dr. Phil's expression hadn't softened. I want to be clear about something, Dr. Phil said. Remorse isn't crying. Remorse isn't feeling bad. Remorse is acknowledging what you did, calling it by its real name, and accepting the consequences. You haven't done any of those things. But I'm sorry, Tyler started. For what? Dr. Phil pressed. Specifically. Say it. Tyler's mouth worked. For hurting Jessica. for the pain I caused. By raping her, Dr. Phil finished. Say the sentence. I'm sorry for raping you. Tyler shook his head. I can't. I don't believe that's accurate. Then you're not sorry, Dr. Phil said bluntly. You're sorry that your actions have consequences. You're sorry that Jessica won't let you rewrite history. You're sorry that coming on this show didn't go the way you planned. But you're not sorry for what you actually did. He turned to Jessica, and this is the man asking for your forgiveness. Jessica looked at Tyler, really looked at him. For 14 years, I thought there was something wrong with me, that I was broken for not being able to move on. Every time you contacted me, and you did, regularly, always wanting to talk or clear the air, I felt guilty, like I was holding a grudge, like I was being unreasonable for not forgiving you. Her voice got stronger. But I'm not unreasonable. You raped me. You pressured me to drop charges. You spent 14 years gaslighting me about what happened. And now you want me to forgive you for mistakes you won't even name. Jess, please. Tyler reached out. Don't touch me, Jessica said sharply. Tyler pulled back like he'd been burned. I don't forgive you, Jessica continued. Not because I'm holding a grudge, not because I'm bitter, but because you're not actually apologizing for what you did. You're apologizing for a sanitized version of events that makes you feel better about yourself. She stood up. And I'm done protecting your feelings. I'm done letting you control the narrative. What you did was rape. Say the word or don't. But stop pretending you're here to make amends when what you really want is for me to absolve you of guilt you should feel. Tyler looked at Dr. Phil desperately. This isn't. I thought this show was about healing. About moving forward. Moving forward requires honesty, Dr. Phil said. And you're not being honest. Not with Jessica. Not with yourself. You've constructed a version of that night where you're not the villain. Where it was just a mistake. Where if Jessica would just forgive you, everything would be fine. He leaned forward. But Jessica doesn't owe you forgiveness. And she certainly doesn't owe you the comfort of pretending what you did was less serious than it was. Dr. Phil pulled out one more document. Tyler, we also spoke to your therapist. With your permission, which you signed an intake. Tyler's eyes widened. What did she? She told us you've been in therapy for 3 years, working on relationship issues and communication problems. But you never once told her about Jessica, about the rape accusation, about the police report. Dr. Phil looked up. In 3 years of therapy, you never mentioned the most significant traumatic event of your adult life. What? Tyler's voice came out small. Because I didn't think it was relevant. Or because telling your therapist would mean admitting it happened, Dr. Phil said. Because a therapist would make you examine your actions. Would call what you did by its real name. Would force you to feel the full weight of what you took from Jessica that night. He stood up, walked to the edge of the stage. Here's what I think happened. I think you raped Jessica. I think you knew what you were doing. I think when she filed charges, you panicked and convinced her to drop them. And then, over the years, you rewrote the story in your head, made yourself the victim of a misunderstanding, convinced yourself that if Jessica would just forgive you, it would prove you weren't really a rapist. Tyler was openly sobbing now. I just want to move on. I want this to be over. It's never going to be over, Dr. Phil said. Not cruelly, but factually. Because you raped someone. That doesn't go away. That's not something you get to move on from without doing the hard work of actually acknowledging what you did. He turned to Jessica. Do you have anything else you want to say to him? Jessica looked at Tyler. At this man who'd haunted her for 14 years. Who'd stolen her sense of safety. Who'd made her doubt her own reality. I hope you never find peace about this, Jessica said quietly. I hope that every time you think about that night, you feel the full weight of what you did. Not the sanitized version. The real version, where you held me down and raped me while I begged you to stop. Her voice didn't waver, because that's what actually happened. And no amount of therapy or apologizing or asking for forgiveness will change it. She stood. I'm done here. And she walked off the stage. Tyler sat frozen. Dr. Phil watched Jessica leave, then turned back to Tyler. This isn't the ending you wanted, Dr. Phil said. You wanted Jessica to forgive you, to tell you that you're not a monster. To give you permission to stop feeling guilty. He sat back down. But that's not how this works. You don't get to assault someone and then demand they make you feel better about it. What am I supposed to do? Tyler asked. His voice was broken. Say the word, Dr. Phil said. Start there. Stop calling it a mistake or a misunderstanding. Call it what it was. Rape. And then live with that truth. Get real therapy. Real help. Stop trying to get your victims to absolve you and start doing the actual work of accountability. Tyler looked at the floor, at his hands, at anything but Dr. Phil's face. Can you do that? Dr. Phil asked. Tyler said nothing. Then this conversation is over, Dr. Phil said. Dr. Phil sat alone on stage. A photo of Jessica appeared on the screen behind him. 6 months ago, Tyler Monroe came on this show wanting forgiveness from a woman he raped 14 years ago, Dr. Phil said. What he got instead was accountability, and he couldn't handle it. He held up a statement. This is from Tyler's attorney. After the episode aired, Tyler was contacted by 2 more women from his college who came forward with similar stories. The district attorney in his college town has reopened investigations into all 5 cases. Tyler is currently facing multiple counts of sexual assault. But this isn't Tyler's story, Dr. Phil continued. This is Jessica's story. So let me tell you what happened to her. Another photo appeared. Jessica standing in front of courthouse. Jessica testified at Tyler's preliminary hearing. She stood in front of a judge and said the word he couldn't say, rape. She detailed what he did, how he pressured her to drop charges, how he spent 14 years gaslighting her. Dr. Phil's voice was proud, and the judge believed her. Jessica also started a support group for sexual assault survivors who were pressured to drop charges. She calls it saying it out loud, because she learned that naming what happened to you, using the real words, not the sanitized versions, is the first step to healing. He looked at the camera. Jessica wrote to me last month. She said something I want to share. For 14 years, I thought forgiveness was my responsibility, that I had to give Tyler peace so I could have peace. But I learned that my peace never depended on forgiving him. It depended on telling the truth, even when the truth was ugly, even when the truth made people uncomfortable. The truth was that I was raped. And once I stopped letting Tyler make me soften that truth, I finally started healing. Dr. Phil stood, walked to the edge of the stage. I want to talk about something we get wrong in our culture. The idea that forgiveness is always the path to healing. The holding on to anger or refusing to forgive means you're bitter or broken or stuck. He shook his head. That's not true. And it's especially not true when the person asking for forgiveness hasn't actually acknowledged what they did wrong. Tyler couldn't say the word rape, and that tells you everything you need to know about his remorse. He wasn't sorry for raping Jessica. He was sorry that raping Jessica had consequences. He wanted her forgiveness so he could stop feeling bad, not because he'd done the work of accountability. And Jessica understood something that took me years to learn. You don't owe your abuser forgiveness. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them the comfort of pretending what they did wasn't that bad. He looked directly at the camera. If you're a survivor of sexual assault and your abuser is asking for forgiveness, here's what I want you to know. You don't have to give it. Not until they've acknowledged what they actually did. Not until they've called it by its real name. Not until they've stopped trying to rewrite history. And if they can't do that, then they're not asking for your forgiveness. They're asking for your permission to stop feeling guilty. And you don't owe them that. Here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Have you ever been pressured to forgive someone who never truly apologized for what they did? Who used words like mistakes or misunderstanding instead of naming their actions? You don't owe anyone your forgiveness, especially not someone who can't be honest about what they're asking forgiveness for. Drop your answer below. Do you think forgiveness requires accountability? Or should victims forgive regardless of whether their abuser takes responsibility? There's no easy answer, but Jessica showed us something important. Sometimes healing means refusing to make your abuser comfortable. And if you want to see what happened when a mother learned her son was facing sexual assault charges and had to choose between believing him and believing his victims, watch that story next. Truth is uncomfortable, but it's the only path forward.